Thank you. So first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this nice opportunity to talk about my research work through this wonderful online Nottingham Algebraic Geometry seminar. So as mentioned by Johanna, this talk will be about actions of connected algebraic groups on rational three-dimensional Mori fibrations. I will give some motivation for this, and don't worry, you don't need to be familiar with the Morris theory to understand what will happen. This work is based on two preprints that you can find on the archive, and these two preprints were our joint work with Jérémy Blanc and Andrea Fanelli, whose faces appear right now on the screen. Okay, so let's get started. To simplify the situation, I suppose that the base field is the field of complex numbers C, okay? But in fact, everything I will say is valid over any algebraically closed field of characteristic 0. And in fact, most, not all, but most of what I will say is valid over any algebraically closed field, with maybe some problem in characteristic 2, 3, 5, okay? But otherwise, most of the tools I will use are completely geometric. So my goal in this talk is to explain how to study. What I want to do is to study the Cremona group, which is a group of birational transformations of the n-dimensional projective space over C. Okay, so this is an abstract group. You can compose the birational transformations, but a priori it's just an abstract group. Okay, but when n equals 1, it is actually an algebraic group because in this case the group of birational transformations of P1 coincides with the group of automorphism of P1, and this is just PGL2. Okay. But if n is at least 2, then one can check, I mean, there is some work to do, but one can check that the group of birational transformation of Pn is neither an algebraic group nor an ind algebraic group, which means an infinite dimensional algebraic group, okay? It is just too big. So whatever the meaning of big you have in mind, this group, this Cremona group, will not satisfy. I mean, if you think about any definition of big you want, and there are great chances that this Cremona group will comply with this definition. Okay, it's very huge group. And that's why it's not an algebraic group. And for a formal proof of this, I should refer to an article written by Jérémy Blanc and Jean-Philippe Furter. I forgot to write down the reference, but I can give it to you after if you like. Okay, so it's not an algebraic group. However, it contains plenty of algebraic subgroups. Okay, for instance, if you take X a rational projective n-fold, and then if you take the automorphism group of X, then you take the neutral component of this, so the connected component containing the identity element. Then you get something which is a connected algebraic group, and you can put this connected algebraic group inside BRPN. To do that, you just need to fix a birational transformation. Here, for instance, I denoted by phi from X to Pn. And then you can check that this connected algebraic group is indeed contained in BRPN. And of course, if you take a different birational transformation, you get a different embedding. But in fact, you can easily verify that two different embeddings will be always conjugate. So to give a rational projective n-fold, will always give you a conjugacy class of connected algebraic subgroups. Okay, so that's one cheap way to produce plenty of connected algebraic subgroups in BRPN. Now the question is the following: since I'm interested in algebraic groups, I would like to find them all. So what are the connected algebraic subgroups of BRPN when n is at least 2? And in fact, I can split this question in two parts. I can first ask what are the is it true that any connected algebraic subgroup of BPN is contained into a maximal one for the inclusion? And if yes, can we classify all the maximal connected algebraic subgroup of BPN? So when n is at least 2, otherwise there is nothing to do, as you can see from the case n equals 1. Okay, so this is the question I would like to address during this talk. Is it clear so far for the motivation? Yes. Okay.
Yes, I would say very clear.
Okay, there is no complaint in the chat. So the strategy to answer this question is the following. It is a very general strategy relying on several powerful results that I will now mention. So you start with G, a connected algebraic subgroup of BPN, okay, an arbitrary one. First, you have the following non-essential observation. G must be linear. Actually, I won't use that in what follows, but I think this is something which is something one should know and which is interesting on its own. This follows from the Nishi-Matsumura theorem, which tells that if you have a connected algebraic group acting faithfully on a rational variety, then its Albanese variety must be trivial. Together with the Chevalley structure theorem, which tells that if the Albanese variety of a connected algebraic group is trivial, then the algebraic group must be linear. Okay, you put these two things together and you get that connected algebraic, any algebraic subgroup of the Cremona group must be linear. So from now on, we will just deal with linear algebraic groups. But again, this is not really something we will use. Okay, so let's end. I now close the parenthesis and I go back to the strategy to answer the question. The first step is to apply the regularization theorem of Weil. This tells you that there exists a smooth rational n-fold, say x1, and a birational map, say phi1 from Pn to x1, such that the birational G action on Pn is conjugate via phi1 to a biregular action on x1. This is the meaning of this inclusion. Okay, it tells you that you can consider G as a subgroup of this automorphism group, and since G is connected, it will be naturally contained in the neutral component, so in the component containing the identity element. Okay, so the first step was to go from a birational action to a biregular action. The second step is a compactification step. So you can compactify G equivalently this x1. This is to do this, we apply a result of Sumihiro using the fact that G is linear. But in the case where G is not linear, we could still compactify G equivalently, applying a more recent result due to Brion. So that's why I told you that the fact that G is linear is not so important for us. But so here we apply this classical result and we obtain a rational projective variety, say x2, such that G acts biregularly on x2. Which means that, as before, there exists a birational map, phi2, from Pn to x2, conjugating G to a connected algebraic subgroup of O0 x2. Okay, so this second step was to go from a rational n-fold to a projective rational n-fold. But maybe we lost the fact that it was smooth. Okay, so now we want something projective and smooth. So we resolve G equivalently the singularities of x2. Here this can be done because the base field is of characteristic 0, so there exists a functorial resolution of singularities. This is a result, I believe, due to Kolar and certainly other people. And so in this case, you know that you can find a G equivalent resolution of singularities, and so you end up with a rational smooth projective n-fold x3. So now you have something which is smooth and rational, on which G acts biregularly. Okay. So you are happy. And actually, this third step is the main obstruction for this strategy to work over any algebraically closed field. Okay, so that's here we have a problem. Okay, so now we have X3, which is rational, which is a rational smooth projective n-fold. And so what we want to do, the last step is to apply a minimal model program to this on this X3 to get a Mori fibration. So let me first recall what is a Mori fibration, and that's the only thing we will use from Mori theory. So a Mori fibration, say pi from X to Y, is a dominant projective morphism between normal projective varieties such that you have the following three conditions. So it seems a bit technical at first sight, but in fact, those are very natural conditions and very convenient to work with. So the first condition, pi lower star of OX equals OY, it tells you basically that the fibers of this morphism are connected. The second condition tells you that the dimension of the basis must be smaller than the dimension of X. This condition here tells you that X must have mild singularities in the sense that X is Q factorial with terminal singularities. In particular, those are codimension 2 singularities. So in dimension 3, you will have just isolated singularities. And the last condition tells you that the anti-canonical line bundle must be relatively ample, which means that a general fiber of pi will be a Fano variety. Okay, and the relative Picard number of this morphism is 1, which means that the Picard group of the generic fiber of pi must be of rank 1. Okay, so now you know as much as me about Mori fibrations, and that's all I will need from the Mori theory, basically. So starting from my X3, which is a rational smooth projective n-fold, I can apply an MMP, so a minimal model program, and I always end up with a Mori fibration. If you apply a minimal model program to a rational variety, you never end up with a minimal model, but always with a Mori fibration. So with a morphism pi from X to Y, on which G acts biregularly. So as before, there exists some birational transformation conjugating the G action on Pn to a biregular G action on X. Okay, and here I should mention that this, when you apply such a minimal model program with G connected algebraic group, then every step is G equivariant. In the case where you do a contraction, this is a consequence of something called Blanchard lemma. And when you have to do the flip of the flop, this follows from the definition of this small isomorphism. You just have a look at the definition, and you will see that it depends only on the canonical class of the class of the canonical divisor. And so this will be fixed for the G action, so everything is G equivalent. I mean, there is some work to do, but it's not so difficult to check that every step will be equivalent. In the case where the group is not connected, it's quite different. In this case, you have something called equivalent minimal model program, okay? But I won't go in this direction during this talk. So moreover, as I just mentioned, there is a powerful result called Blanchard's lemma, which tells that any contraction must be G equivariant. So in particular, this fibration is also G equivariant. You have a priori G is acting on X, but in fact it's also acting on Y, and this morphism is G equivalent. Okay, so this will be quite useful to when studying the automorphism group acting on contained in the Cremona group. So the partial conclusion so far, applying this strategy, is the following. The connected algebraic subgroups of BPN are precisely those acting biregularly on rational Mori fiber spaces. Okay, this is a huge reduction. This is not the end of the story, of course, because now we have to study those guys, but that's why in this talk I'm mostly interested in the connected algebraic groups acting on rational Mori fiber spaces, because that's the only one that appear as a connected algebraic subgroup of BRPN. Okay, so now let's apply this strategy. At least let's consider the case where n is small. So we start with a warm-up, which is the case n equals 2. So we apply the previous strategy to determine the maximal connected algebraic subgroups of BRP2. Just one point of terminology. When I say Mori fibration, I always mean this morphism. If I say Mori fiber space, I mean this X. And when I say basis, I mean Y. Okay, so X is a Mori fiber space, pi is a Mori fibration. I don't know whether this is a universal terminology, but that's the one I will use during this talk. Okay, so we want to apply the previous strategy to determine the maximal connected algebraic subgroups of BRP2. To do that, we need to understand what are the rational Mori fiber spaces in dimension 2, and those are precisely P2 and the Hirzebauer surfaces. So let me recall the definition of the Hirzebauer surfaces. Pk, a non-negative integer. Then the Hirzebauer surface Fk is the P1 bundle over P1 defined by the following equality. So you take the trivial line bundle over P1, you take another trivial line bundle, you twist it with K, you get a rank 2 vector bundle, and actually any rank 2 vector bundle over P1 is of this form, because it's a classical result of algebraic geometry that any vector bundle over P1 is a direct sum of line bundle. So you get something like this, and then you projectivize, and you end up with a P1 bundle, and they are all of this form. Okay, so this is the definition of a Hirzebauer surface. In particular, if you take k equals 0, you have F0, which is P1 times P1. And as I just said, the Hirzebauer surfaces together with P2 are precisely the rational Mori fiber spaces in dimension 2. So now I can apply the previous strategy, and what do I get? I get the case n equals 2. So the proposition is the following. Any connected algebraic subgroup of BRP2 is conjugate to a subgroup of odd P2, odd 0 P1 times P1, or odd Fk with k at least 2. Moreover, these algebraic subgroups are maximal in BRP2, so you cannot conjugate one to a strict subgroup of another. And so any connected algebraic subgroup of BRP2 is contained into a maximal one. Okay, so this was the first part of my question. Take an arbitrary connected algebraic subgroup of BRP2. Can you put it into a maximal one? The answer is yes. And the second part of the question was which one are the maximal one? Then you have the list here. Odd P2, odd 0 P1 times P1, odd Fk. So here I just want to mention something. Sometimes there is a 0, sometimes there is not. When the group is connected, I don't put the 0, but when the group is not connected, then I put it. So here, for instance, the neutral component of this guy is PGL2 times PGL2. But if I remove the 0, I have also an automorphism exchanging the 2P1. So in this case, it is not connected. So that's why I have to put the 0. But here it is connected, and here it is also connected, so I don't put it. Okay. But I always consider connected algebraic groups. Are there questions about that so far? Is it okay? About the strategy and the case n equals 2? Okay,
yeah,
so
I would say it's good.
I continue. So now let's move on to the case n equals 3. Maybe one striking feature in the case n equals 2 is that all of the rational Mori fiber spaces, except one, appear in this classification. So you take the automorphism group of any rational Mori fiber space except F1. F1 is not there. Otherwise, they all give rise to a maximal connected algebraic subgroup of BRP2. You don't get F1 because F1 is isomorphic to the blow-up of P2 at one point, and so out of F1 is conjugate to a strict subgroup of out of P2, so it's not maximal. That's why it does not appear. But all the others, they are maximal. So one can ask whether there is the situation is similar in dimension 3, whether most of the rational Mori fiber spaces of dimension 3 give rise to maximal connected algebraic subgroup of the Cremona group. Okay, and you will see that the situation is quite different when n equals 3. So when n equals 3, a full classification of the maximal connected algebraic subgroups of BRP3 was obtained by Umemura and Mukai in a series of 5 papers written by Umemura alone and 1 paper written by Umemura and Mukai for a total length of about 250 pages, published in the 80s. Okay, and summarizing roughly the main results contained in the series of these 6 papers, I get the following theorem. Any connected algebraic subgroup of BRP3 is conjugate to a subgroup of one of the following maximal connected algebraic subgroups of BRP3. So it means this long sentence means that any connected algebraic subgroup is contained into a maximal one, as in the case n equals 2. And I will now give you the list of the maximal one. You have 7 sporadic cases. So here Q3 denotes the smooth quadric in P4. V5 and V22 are the usual notation for certain Fano threefolds that you can find in the book, for instance, of Iskowski Prokhorov. So this is the usual notation. And here TP2 is a tangent bundle over P2, and when I projectivize it, I get a P1 bundle over P2. And the other notation are the one you think. So those give you 7 maximal connected algebraic subgroups in BRP3. You have also 8 discrete families of P1 bundles and P2 bundles, depending on 1 or 2 integers. For instance, you can take the automorphism group of P1 times Fk, or you can take the automorphism group of a decomposable P1 bundle over P2, so it will be of this form, or the automorphism group of a decomposable P2 bundle over P1. Well, as I said before, any P2 bundle over P1 is decomposable, so it will be always of this form. Here you have 2 parameters, and here you have 1, and so on. So you have this kind of obvious families depending on 1 or 2 parameters. Most of them will give rise to maximal connected algebraic subgroups of BRP3. And most surprisingly, there is a third, there is a last family, which is a continuous family of automorphism groups of smooth quadric fibrations over P1. So this is new compared to the case n equals 2, but this is just one family. Huh? In fact, it depends on the choice of a polynomial in 2 variables, which is square free. So that's how you parameterize this continuous family. And even if you maybe have the feeling that this list is quite long, actually compared to the list of the rational Mori fiber spaces in dimension 3, it is a very short list. Most of them are missing. For instance, here you don't find the automorphism group of the conic bundles over a rational surface, for instance. So it's quite strange compared with the case n equals 2, where all the rational Mori fiber spaces were giving rise to maximal connected algebraic subgroup of BRP2. Here it's far from being the case. So in this case, when n equals 3, there is a natural question one can ask is, why do so few Mori fibrations appear in this list? Okay, all of them, they are here, not many of them. So where are the others? And actually, this question was asked to me by Jérémy Blanc like 5 or 6 years ago. And this was the starting point of this project with Andrea Fanelli. The starting point was this observation that it's kind of surprising that so few Mori fibrations appear in this list. Okay. Just one word before going on. Here, this theorem was proved by Umemura and Mukai when the base field is the field of complex numbers, and they really use the fact that the base field is C, and not just an algebraically closed field of characteristic 0. Indeed, in their proof, they use ingredients from a complex geometry, such as a classification result due to Lie of analytic low chunks, these kind of things. And so this is one part of the ingredients, and another part is more related to the theory of the structure of algebraic groups. So this second part, maybe you can extend it over on any algebraically closed field if you if you do some work. But for the first part, there is no way you can naively extend it. Okay, so this proof is really a proof over the field of complex numbers. I want to emphasize this because I will come back to this later during this talk. Okay, so I told you the question now is why do so few Mori fibrations appear in this list? And to answer this question, you have three cases to consider. So depending on the dimension of y, because now we are always considering that X is a rational Mori fiber space of dimension 3. So the dimension of y must be 0, 1, or 2. If it's 1, then it means that y is a point. And so X must be a rational Fano threefold with terminal singularities and Picard rank 1. The smooth ones, they are very well known. It's P3, Q3, V5, V22. We also know their automorphism group, PGL4, PSO5, PGL2, PGL2. And by the way, you also find them here. That's the fourth one in the list. Okay, so they all give rise to maximal connected algebraic subgroup in the Cremona group. Okay, but the problem is that you must also consider the singular ones, and they do appear in the final classification. For instance, if you consider the weighted projective spaces P1112 or P1123. Those are rational Fano threefold with terminal singularities and Picard rank 1, and their automorphism group are maximal connected algebraic subgroups in BRP3. Okay, so you cannot ignore them, but the problem is that there is no, as far as I know, classification of such Fano threefolds when they have terminal singularities. So here we hit a dead end. Fortunately, in the case where the dimension of y is at least 1, the situation improves. So when the dimension of y is 1, since x is rational and y is normal, since x is rational, y must be rational, and it is also normal, so it must be P1. So you end up with a Mori-Del Pezzo fibration over P1, which means a Mori fibration whose general fiber is a Del Pezzo surface. Del Pezzo surfaces are, smooth Del Pezzo surfaces are easy to classify. You have P2, you have P1 times P1, and you have P2 blown up at R points in general position with R between 1 and 8. Okay, so that's very easy to make the list. So that's all your possibilities. And finally, you have also to consider, if you want to answer this question, the case where the basis has dimension 2, in which case you have a Mori fibration over a surface Y, whose general fiber is P1. So I call this a Mori P1 fibration. Okay, but it's not necessarily a P1 bundle. It just means that a general fiber is P1, but you can have some bad fibers, and also Y can be singular. Okay, so that's the three cases to consider. So let me now go into details in the case where dimension of y equals 1 to tell you what happened with the Mori-Del Pezzo fibrations and why in the classification result of Umemura and Mukai, we find only P2 bundles and quadric fibrations. So I will give some details. I mean, not so many, but I will give you the headline in the case of the Mori-Del Pezzo fibrations. Then there will be an overview in the case of Mori P1 fibration. You will see why the non-trivial conic bundles don't appear in the end. And I think then it will be time to finish. So let's discuss the case of Mori-Del Pezzo fibrations. So first you have this well-known lemma that you can find in the work of Mori when X is assumed to be smooth, but I think this is the same proof that I will give here. If pi is a Mori-Del Pezzo fibration, so a Mori fibration whose general fiber is a Del Pezzo surface, then a general fiber of pi cannot be P2 blown up at 1 or 2 points. Okay. A priori, Del Pezzo surfaces you can have a P2, P1 times P1, or P2 blown up at R points, so 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. But here, in fact, we will check that there are some obstruction. If you are a general fiber of Mori fibration, you cannot have any Del Pezzo surface. Okay, the proof is very easy. Huh? It's 3 lines proof. That's why I will do it. So the proof is by reductio ad absurdum. Assume that the general fiber of pi is P2 blown up at 1 point. Okay, and denote by capital K the function field of the basis, so CP1 here, and by xk bar the geometric generic fiber of pi. Okay, so I take the generic fiber and then I extend the scalars and I get something which is isomorphic to the blob of P2 k bar at 1 point, because the general fiber is P2 blown up at 1 point. Okay, so this is a geometric generic fiber. In particular, it's easy to determine its Picard group. The Picard group of xk bar is a rank 2 lattice generated by L and E, where L is a strict transform of a generic line in P2, and E is the exceptional divisor in xk bar, so it is a -1 curve. Okay. Also, you have an action of the absolute Galois group. This absolute Galois group naturally acts on this lattice. It fixes E because E is the unique -1 curve, and it also fixes the canonical class, which is -3L plus E. This is something you can check by hand. So if you look at the invariant part for the action of the Galois group on this lattice, you get a sublattice of rank 2. Okay. And now we have the following series of equalities. Since you have a Mori fibration, the relative Picard rank is 1 by definition of a Mori fibration. And I told you that this relative Picard rank, you can define it as the rank of the Picard group of the generic fiber. So here it's a definition of this row. But this, by Galois descent, this peak of xk is identified with the Galois invariant part of the Picard group of the geometric generic fiber. And we just saw that this guy is a sublattice of rank 2. So in the end, you get this crazy equality, and so you end up with a contradiction. So it's not possible for a Mori fibration to have a general fiber which is P2 blown up at 1 point. And to prove that it is not possible to have a P2 blown up at 2 points, it is an argument which is very similar. So I don't give it to you, but if you want to know the argument, I can tell you at the end of my talk. It's very close from this. Okay. But for P2 blown up at 3 points or more, there is no obstruction. This can happen. Okay. So now this tells you that you can ignore the case where the fiber is P2 blown up at 1 point or 2 points. And thanks to this proposition that we prove with Jérémy Blanc and Andrea Fanelli, we will also be able to get rid of the Mori-Del Pezzo fibrations whose general fiber is P2 blown up at 3 points or more. Okay. So why is that? Well, if a general fiber of the Del Pezzo fibration pi is P2 blown up at 3 points or more, then one can check that the neutral component of its automorphism group is an algebraic torus. Okay. So first, let me give you an idea of the proof of this proposition, and then I will tell you what are the consequences. So the idea of the proof is the following. First, you apply this Blanchard lemma. So Blanchard lemma, I mentioned it earlier. It tells you that if you have a connected algebraic group acting on X, then it is also acting on P1, and pi is G equivalent. So here you can take G equals the neutral component of this automorphism group. This is indeed a connected algebraic group. And so Blanchard lemma tells you that pi is O0x equivalent. So O0x is acting on P1, and pi, and therefore it induces an exact sequence in the category of algebraic groups. You have your group O0x. O0x is acting on P1, so you get a homomorphism from O0x to PGL2, and I denote the image of this homomorphism by H. So you have this homomorphism, which is surjective because I just took the image, and now you take the kernel of this homomorphism, and you get the subgroup formed by the element of O0x acting trivially on the basis. This is sometimes called the horizontal part of the automorphism group, okay? And this is the part acting trivially on P1, and even if there is a 0 here, this group need not be connected, okay? Because I took a subgroup of this guy. And now there is some work to do. Of course, this is just the first step to have this exact sequence. Then one needs to study a bit H and this group, and out of this we can deduce that this group will be an algebraic torus. So what we do is we verify that H must fix at least 2 points in P1. So it has to be contained in the group of diagonal matrices in PGL2, and this group is exactly the multiplicative group. So H must be contained in GM, and H is connected, so H is GM or a point. And this group, one can verify that it is naturally contained in the automorphism group of the geometric generic fiber of pi, which is a Del Pezzo surface. It is P2 blown up at 3 points or more. And those automorphism groups are well known. It's easy to find their description in the literature. For instance, in the book of Dolgachev on invariant theory, I think, or on classical geometry. I mean, it's everywhere. And what you get from there is that this group is either finite or an extension of a finite group with GM square. This is in the case where you just blow up 3 points, and if you blow up 4 points or more, you get something finite. And so you put these two things together, and you easily prove that this O0 of X must be contained in GM3. Okay, and since it is contained in GM3, it is an algebraic torus. So that's how it goes. There is no details here, I'm aware of that, but it gives you an idea of what we do, why we have this statement. Okay, and why are we happy with such a statement? Well, we are happy because of the following proposition, which is, I believe, due to Popov, but it's also something very classical. All tori of dimension D of a given dimension in BRP3, so 1, 2, or 3, they are conjugate in BRP3. Okay, so in particular, they are all conjugate to a strict subgroup of the automorphism group of P3, which is PGL4. Indeed, in PGL4, you have a torus of dimension 3. So if they are all conjugate, you can all put them inside PGL4. And so this tells you that if O0 of X is a torus, then it will never be a maximal connected algebraic subgroup in the Cremona group, because you can always conjugate it to a strict subgroup of ODE P3. Okay, so you can just get rid of all these guys. So in conclusion, so partial conclusion, in the case of Maury-Del Pezzo fibrations, if pi from X to P1 is a Maury-Del Pezzo fibration, fibration whose general fiber is neither P2 nor P1 times P1, then the neutral component of its automorphism group is conjugate to a strict subgroup of odd P3. Okay, and so you can ignore them, and that's why they don't appear in the classification result of Umemura and Mukai. Okay, so it remains two cases to consider. We are not done yet. First, you have the case where a general fiber of pi is P2, and it does not mean that you have a P2 bundle. Huh? I really mean that a general fiber is P2, but you can have some bad fibers. So you have a P2 fibration over P1. And what you can do, you can reduce to the case where you actually have a P2 bundle. Indeed, if you have a P2 fibration over P1, what you do for each bad fiber, so you have a finite number of them because you are over P1. So for each bad fiber, you consider the singular locus, you blow it up, and then you contract the strict transform of the fiber, and you do this again and again and again for each bad fiber. And then we prove that at some point you will end up with a P2. Okay, if you do this again and again. So starting with any P2 fibration, you can do this elementary transformations, and at the end of the day, you end up with a P2 bundle over P1. And this elementary transformations, they are all equivariant because you blow up something G-stable and then you do a contraction, and by Blanchard lemma, it's always equivariant. So you really end up with a G-equivalent birational map from your P2 fibration to a P2 bundle. A P2 bundle over P1 are all of the form projectivization of a direct sum of 3-line bundles, so they are very easy to study. Okay. And the last case is the most intricate one in the case of Mori-Del Pezzo fibrations. It is a case where a general fiber is P1 times P1, because in this case you still have to work a lot to be able to reduce to an element of the continuous family of quadric fibrations over P1 that is mentioned in the classification result. Okay, so I don't give details in this case. This is one of the most complicated one to handle, but yeah, there is still, I mean, so far we can prove that you just need to consider P2 bundle and P1 times P1 fibration, and now without giving you any details, I'm telling you that if you spend a couple of days or a couple of weeks on this case, you end up with a very explicit description of the possibilities for the quadric fibrations with whose automorphism group is maximal in BRP3. Okay. So this finishes the case of Mori-Del Pezzo fibrations, and I will now give a brief overview of the case of Mori P1 fibrations to answer the question of Miles, and also because I think it's interesting on its own, of course. So we now consider the case where pi from x to y is a Mori P1 fibration over a rational surface. And we want to understand why in the classification result of Umemura, there are just automorphism group of P1 bundles over Hirzeboro surfaces and P2, but nothing else. For instance, there is no automorphism group of non-trivial conic bundles. Okay. Well, step one to deal with this case is to apply a result due to Sarkisov to reduce to the case where pi is a standard conic bundle over the surface y. Okay. In the work of Sarkisov, there is no group action, so it's not written that that you can do it in an equivariant way. But if you check line by line carefully the steps, you can check that if you have a connected algebra group acting, then indeed there is a reduction from you can always go equivalently from a Mori P1 fibration to a standard conic bundle. Okay, this can always be done equivalently, and this is we wrote some details in our article, but this is not a big deal. Maybe I should recall what is a standard conic bundle. Standard conic bundle means that x and y are smooth, and that pi is induced by the inclusion of some quadric into a P2 bundle over y. Okay, so we are very happy with this because, well, first it's smooth, and second, this can be made very explicit. It means that you take local chart, then your P2 bundle is locally something P2 times Y. And inside this P2, you put a smooth quadric, and then you just have to glue these things together. And this is what I mean by when I talk about inclusion of some quadric into a P2 bundle. Okay. So this is a very explicit. You can compute with coordinates, and that's why the situation here is much better than here. And now, using this definition of standard conic bundle, you can check the following facts. If the generic fiber of the pi you started with is P1, I mean of this pi, this new pi, is P1, then this is actually a P1 bundle, not just a P1 fibration, but a P1 bundle. And if the generic fiber of pi is not P1, then its automorphism group is again an algebraic torus. So as for the Maury-Delpezzo fibrations, to prove this result, you have to write an exact sequence, to look at the vertical part, the horizontal part, and to check that this group must be small, and you end up with an algebraic torus in the middle. So that's really similar from what I explained before. And so, as I said, it means that in this case, this automorphism group will never give rise to a maximal connected algebraic subgroup of BRP3 because it's a torus. And we just saw that torus are always conjugate to subgroup of PGL4. Okay, so that's why the non-trivial conic bundle don't appear in the list, and that's why it suffices to consider P1 bundle over smooth rational surfaces. And in fact, there is one last step we can perform to simplify the situation. Indeed, we proved a descent lemma. This is something easy to prove, but also very useful to reduce to the case where this projective rational surface is actually a minimal smooth rational surface, which means that you can take Y to be P2 or P1 times P1 or Fk with K at least 2, where Fk is the Hirzebauer surface. So here it's not the end of the story, because if you know a bit the world of P1 bundles over P2 or over Hirzebauer surfaces, it's still the jungle. There's still a lot of work to do, but still I would say that starting from here, when you arrive here, you can think that you start to see the end of the tunnel. Okay, because here at least you can now work with coordinates. You can write things explicitly, so it's a huge improvement. Okay. So now what remains to be done is the following. So far, what I have explained is how to get rid of certain families. I told you if you have a Maury-Delpezzo fibration whose general fiber is not P2 or P1 times P1, you can get rid of it. If you have a non-trivial conic bundle, you can get rid of it, and so on. But now I have some remaining families, and I have to check which one correspond to maximal connected algebraic subgroup in BRP3. Okay, it's not the end of the journey. So it remains to study the automorphism groups of the P1 bundle over the minimal smooth rational surfaces, the automorphism groups of the P2 bundles and of the quadric fibrations over P1, and the automorphism groups of the rational Fano threefolds of Picard rank 1 with terminal singularities. For the two first things, we were able to do it in details, so to determine precisely the structure of these groups, their dimension, and the orbits. The case of Fano threefold is more a thorn in the side. And that's the case we are not completely able to handle so far. Okay. But fortunately, it's kind of disjoint from the two other cases, so we can still put it aside. It's not such a big deal, but as long as we are not completely able to deal with this case, we don't recover the full classification of Umemura. We are not completely sure that we are not missing someone. Okay, so this is maybe for later. And once we have understood this group, we have to determine which ones yield maximal connected algebraic subgroup of BRP3 and which ones are conjugate to each other. Okay, you can have that the automorphism group of some P1 bundle is conjugate to a subgroup of the automorphism group of some other P2 bundle. Okay, and you have such thing. To do this, to perform this last step, to study the maximality or the non-maximality of the connected algebraic subgroup you end up with, the main tool is the equivariant Sarkisov program for three-folds, whose validity follows from the work of Corti. It's in this paper of Corti, the author proved the validity of the Sarkisov program. There is no connected algebraic groups acting, but as in the case of the standard conic bundles that I mentioned before, if you follow the proof carefully, you can easily check that every step can be made equivariant. So, in fact, this proves this gives a proof for the equivariant Sarkisov program for three-folds, and also more recently, Floris proved that the validity of the equivalent Sarkisov program in full generality. So you have at least two places where you can find a proof for the validity of this equivalent Sarkisov program. And this equivalent Sarkisov program is useful to describe the possible G equivalent birational transformation from one Mori fibration to another. Okay, so that's why we use it. It tells you exactly how to decompose such G equivalent birational transformations. Okay, but this is a complete different story, and there is still a lot of there would be still a lot of things to say. So since I'm not far from the end of my presentation, I would like to raise some open questions, which I hope will lead in the future to nice research project. Huh? You never know. So the first question is the following. We have this classification by Umemura. What we have done is to find a more geometric approach to prove it. An approach which could explain why so few Mori fibrations appear. So from this point of view, I think it's a success. But actually, our approach, in our approach, there was another goal. We wanted to have a proof over any algebraically closed field, not just over C. And so this is not, we are not successful yet because the main problem is that there is no equivalent resolution of singularities in for three-folds in positive characteristic. But if you put aside this crucial obstruction, everything works over any algebraically closed field. Maybe you have to remove characteristic 2, 3, 5 because then the Mori program is not, the Mori theory is not valid, but otherwise everything works. So there are some there are some minor obstruction, but nothing serious. You can really make everything I told you work in this generality. So we hope that at some point we will be able to really get a full classification with this approach. Okay, so this is an open question, but yeah, the situation is clear and we know exactly what we missed to address this question. Another question is the following. What are the maximal algebraic subgroup of BRP3? And not just the connected one. I mean, if you remove the word connected, if you consider also the possibly disconnected maximal algebraic subgroup of BRP3, you want to classify them. In the case of BRP2, this was done by Blanc in a paper published in 2009, but in the case n equals 3, there is, as far as I know, no classification. Let me recall that in the case of BRP2, if you put the word connected, you end up with 3 families. If you remove the word connected, in the work of Blanc, you have 11 families, and some of them are very complicated to describe. To describe these 11 families, you need like 2 pages to give the details. So this is still okay, but you can see the steps. So if there is any proportionality rule between the case n equals 2 and n equals 3, given the fact that for BRP3 we have 16 families of automorphism group, in the disconnected case, you can expect something like 60 families of maximal algebraic subgroups. So if you need 2 pages, each time you have 10 families, you will end up with something quite big, okay? But still, I think this could be done at least partially. It would be interesting to have some families of examples, or maybe this could be a PhD project for a very motivated and bright student. In another direction, one could also apply the same strategy in a different setting. So it would be, I think, worth watching the case where X is a non-rational threefold, such that Brx is not an algebraic group. For instance, if you take P2 times a non-rational curve, then you are in this situation. And then a priori, you can apply the same strategy to determine the maximal connected algebraic subgroup of Brx. And so it would be nice to do it and to see what you end up with, I think. So this is something I didn't consider, we didn't consider so far, but I think it's a nice open question. And here I should mention, by the way, that the case, the non-rational case when X is of dimension 2 was done recently by Pascal Fong. It's a preprint that you can find on the archive, where he worked out the general case where X is any surface and the base field is any algebraically closed field. Okay. And finally, one last question is to do the same thing, but for BPN with n at least 4. Of course, you cannot expect to have a complete list when n equals 4 or when n is 5, 6, and so on, because it's probably just too complicated. But you can expect maybe a pattern. I don't know. It would be nice to see whether all the obvious projective bundles that you can think of give rise to maximal connected algebraic subgroup. And also, one last thing, it would be, I think it would be very nice if we were able to prove a priori that any connected algebraic subgroup of BPN is always contained into a maximal one for the inclusion. Okay. So it is not true in the non-rational case. For instance, if you take P1 times a non-rational curve, it's not true that any connected algebraic subgroup is contained into a maximal one. Again, this is a result due to Pascal Fong. But in the case of P2, P3, it is true. But it follows from the classification. We are not able to prove it a priori. We just can. This is just an observation a posteriori. Okay. So it would be nice to be able to prove this. I don't even know whether it's always true, but this is, I think, a question nice being addressed. Okay, so I'm done. Thank you very much for your attention.